Okay, we're recording. Okay. So I'm going to back up and just redo some of that. So let's see. So in thinking about how to do an interview here at KXCI, I had to be a little bit creative. And so I reached out to Ed about asking for an American Sign Language interpreter, which he gave me some resources and pointed me in a direction. And so joining us today is Jennifer Hudgens, who will be communicating with Ed through sign language and then voicing his answers so that we can hear them here on the radio. So thanks to both of you for being here today.
Thank you, no problem.
Okay. Okay, so first, Ed, just wanted to know, how long have you been riding a bike in Tucson, and how did you get started doing that?
I have been cycling since 2001, and as a result of my vehicle, my truck, no longer working, and I decided I wasn't going to buy another one. So I was fortunate enough to purchase the bicycle at the time. And when I moved here in 2001, coming from another state, I wasn't using it that often, but in 2009 I was starting to cycle a lot more often, and ever since I have.
Okay. And then, so that leads to my next question. I'm going to say that where I'm not stumbling over it. So that leads to my next question. Is the bike your primary means of transportation right now, or do you mix it with other ways to get around Tucson?
It is my primary mode of transportation, yes.
Okay.
Of course, sometimes I do use public transportation like the bus,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll rent a bike if I'm in between,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll do to-go.
Okay, the bike share.
Yeah, or that's if a situation comes up that I can't utilize my own
Mm-hmm.
bicycle, or if it's raining, for example, or the streets are just too flooded to cycle,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll leave the bike at home, or if something's broke, then I leave it home and I choose other transportation modes. But for the majority of the time, yes, it's my main mode of transportation.
Okay, good. Okay, so now we're getting into the meatier questions here. So with the City of Tucson's new Complete Streets policy that was just recently passed, we need to be thinking about how our transportation network should be safe and convenient for all the users. And so in your mind, I'm curious, what changes would you like to see in our city and or kind of street design that would help it to be more inclusive and accessible for everyone? So maybe let's start with, what are some short-term things or quick and easy things that you think the city could do?
I would like to see about some sort of a Dutch style system.
Okay, and but what do you mean by
Or
that?
a structure where the roads are much more protected.
Mm-hmm.
Where the road like the road diet,
Okay. Yeah.
and just kind of seeing more of the Dutch style system as they do, to see more of that type of structure here in Tucson.
Good.
And I mean, it'd be nice to see all the roads protected such as that, because you don't see that now.
Yeah. So I'm just going to ask a quick side question. Have you ever been to Europe or Netherlands?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I went there to the Dutch region, and I'm sorry, I know there's another name for the country.
Netherlands?
Holland. Thank you.
Okay.
I went to Holland and seen how they do their cycling system, and I worked for a company there for 6 months, so I was there for a bit. I drove instead of cycling only because I didn't have a bicycle there, but I saw a lot of bicycles in use and just the way their system worked. And I follow a lot of friends that I have there who are from Amsterdam, and they've taken pictures of what their area looks like. And another person also who has talked about the befores and afters of their design that has been structured in their city.
Okay.
Also, we talk about the Dutch way of, compared to how America does it. So taking a look at that, it's now more and more, since I went back in that was like 1996,
Oh, wow.
Moderate number of people utilizing the system. We're obviously more now than there had been in the past. The laws have changed. They have had a lot of advances. So I wish now I have the opportunity to cycle there.
Yeah. I think a lot of us would like to go there and experience that. Indeed.
Yes.
So by saying you want to go to kind of the Dutch style system, that's a pretty broad concept. Are there any longer terms or kind of big projects that you'd like to see on the ground in Tucson apart from that?
I would say long term, that Dutch style system is more of that long term, vision that I would like to see, and the government just accepting more where pedestrians and cyclists are priority versus vehicular, and seeing that the roads are modified and improved to accommodate that. And at the same time, reduce the number of deaths in Tucson, because I keep hearing about cyclists who are involved in accidents and they're fatal accidents. So if the structure in our town, in our city improves, those numbers would decrease.
Good. Okay. I'm a little blind, so I have to do my glasses. Okay, so instead of kind of moving away from the infrastructure and design part, I want to talk a little bit about bike culture in Tucson. And so Tucson is often known for having a good bike culture. We get written up in a lot of magazines, and when people come here, it's a noticeable element of the city life. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, do you feel that it's inclusive of folks of different abilities, or do you feel that there's a barrier to be kind of engaged with the bike culture here in Tucson?
For myself as a deaf individual, I don't feel like there's any concerns or fears. I think because I grew up in Tucson, I'm familiar with the city, and I've, cycled many times, and even start off on a big wheel in my neighborhood, on the streets, on the sidewalks, through downtown. I would stop at the old newsstands, and grab the newspaper, or go to the stores or whatnot, all on my big wheel, so I started pretty young out on the streets like that. When it came to my siblings, sometimes I would borrow their bikes, just, rather than using the big wheel, but, I think at that time, there weren't any, in fact, there were almost no structures in town for cyclists, on the streets, where nowadays we definitely have a lot of improvements in our city with the structure, where people can get on the streets and just go. As an individual, I don't have any personal fears or concerns. I do know that there's a lot of people who do, some don't. I do try to show that, we can do this, that if Tucson has the ability to make some improvements to their structure, then I think more people with disabilities would have less fears to ride, be it a regular bicycle or whatever type of cycle they're using on the roads, or depending on what the roads look like, or they would just get out there and use the public transportation, such as the bus.
Okay. Do you have deaf or hearing impaired friends that you cycle with, or would want to cycle if the conditions were better?
Yes, there are some who say I'm a little afraid, just because some of the streets where you cycle are very narrow, or some are very wide, and then they just feel so large to them. And I think, you know, they've seen some of the differences before and after on some of the construction done in town. But my bike, and with a good friend who, you know, has been here in Tucson, said it's pretty easy to get around on a bicycle. And I have showed them, you know, where they can go and what's the best routes and whatnot, and they said it has been easy for them. So yeah.
Cool. Very good. So I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. So within the Tucson bike culture, there's often kind of a little subculture. So you kind of have roadies that are dressed out in their spandex and ride. You have, trying to think what other subcultures are out there, but trying to think what would be. So I guess my question is there a deaf biking subculture in Tucson that I don't know about?
Well, I'm not a racer. I'm not training for any sort of race, so I usually just bike and cycle in my regular clothes. And I forget what it is that you call it. However, I am not the fixie kind of cyclist who loves, you know, that type of speed racing and whatnot. But yeah, no, of course, or, you know, I just, my regular clothes, sometimes shorts, sometimes pants. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that works.
Very normal, yeah.
Good. Anything else about cycling? I don't want to say that. I want to say this. Yeah, just read this. Anything else you would like to share about your experience riding a bike in Tucson?
Can you ask that again?
Sure. Anything else you would like to share about your experience of riding a bike around Tucson? Anything that we haven't talked about or that you want to share?
I think one road I absolutely love is excuse me. One road I absolutely love is Freeman Street.
Okay. Where exactly?
That is near Saguaro Park.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the old Spanish Trail out east, and it kind of tees off and it comes to a dead end, you go left. It's a nice long downhill. You can go fast. I love that road. There's been a few times as I'm going around Tucson, I just enjoy the sights. And as you go south, you're realizing you're going on a bit of an incline. And then as you go north, you realize you're declining a bit, so it's a little bit easier to get back. And then I get myself home. But yeah, getting around Tucson's pretty cool. But I do love that one area. I need to go again.
Yeah, good. Well, that's what I have. I think that'll make up our 3 minutes. I'll kind of pack that together and to do that.
One addition, if you don't mind me adding, when you take a look at the airport, I would like to see that they have more bicycle parking, because really there's like one area, but it's very far in the back. It'd be nice to see something out front, closer, so that you're not having to walk all the way around. So it would be nice to see more bicycle area parking at the airport as well.
It'd probably be more secure, more visible as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you all very much for coming in today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good. So I'll do some editing probably next week and get this trimmed down. And then he had asked about a transcript. So once I get it edited to the 3 minutes, I'll type that up and send that to Ed.
Are you going to post that at all on the website too?
The transcript? I can, yes.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Okay.
Because then I will try to get that clip on my Facebook page as well, so that people can, you know, have a link to it.
Yeah.
And read it, as well as just kind of let me know if something comes up online when there's a video or anything like that. And if you don't mind, I'm probably I might just leave the video raw and leave it as is.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
That works good.
I just want to make sure though, whether now or later, are you okay with the video? Do you prefer me to wait until your part is done before I do any posting of the video?
No, I think that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yep. Good. Okay to stop now?
Yes, go ahead.